Water, water everywhere.
Water. You not get enemy.
No, that's not what we're doing.
Water. You not get.
Did you experience flooding in your area?
Well,
Any semblance of it at all?
when you drive around, you will experience flooding. Forget it.
Well, you do know those who experience flooding.
When you drive around, you will experience flooding.
Well, to the residents on Lagos Island and
and the axis,
people who
even on mainland,
even on the mainland,
Anthony,
really, there was a lot of flooding in the parts
and that
of the
was
mainland.
really shocking. That the flash flood at Oshodi was very shocking. It wasn't really too much of a surprise in the Lekki axis, but the scale is what was a bit concerning, and the fact that it even entered into some houses, some places that normally wouldn't, and then it took a little longer than it should have to dissipate. Yes, I think that's
so. That's just, and there are many reasons why they say these things happen. Of course, we're still having blaming climate change. But then there's a lot of things. So let's take a look at why these floodings happen and, people's comments and interpretations of it and, what the experts are saying, what the government is saying. And we're joined on the program today by the chairman of Lufasa Park, environmental advocate, Lufasi Park, I beg your pardon, and environmental advocate Desmond Majekodumi, as well as Joseph Onoja, Director General of the Nigerian Conservation Foundation. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on the program.
Having us.
Right. Let me start from you, Dr. Onoja. What are your thoughts on, these floodings and, the interpretation given to it by various agencies saying blocked drainage systems are partially responsible, people dumping refuse indiscriminately, but then there's a part of nature that's also causing these floodings. What are your views about the latest flash floods that we experience as a result of the rains that insist on falling for hours?
Well, I am sure this is not. This is not new.
Yeah.
We come every day, every year. We talk about this, and it's not something that is taking us unawares. We are very much aware of this fact is going to come. So let's take nature out of it because it's going to happen. So let's not blame nature. Yes, climate change is happening. A lot of things are changing, but also I must situate it, especially on the axis of Lekki where we are, to the greed and what we have done to nature, that nature is just paying back to us. We have been receiving a lot of loans from nature, and nature is just giving us the bill, just beginning to give us the bill. So I'm going to talk specifically of how indiscriminately people are sand-filling wetlands. Very few greedy people are making every other person suffer. The government is not completely innocent on that, but I'm going to also blame a lot of people because we are all government. For instance, I was saying the Commissioner of Environment was a citizen before he was appointed a commissioner. After his tenure, he will stop being a commissioner. He'll come back to being a citizen. So any of us can be the Honorable Commissioner for Environment and Water Resources. So for some people to just go and sand-fill wetlands indiscriminately without recourse to the natural flow of water or to the canals, then putting every other person into trouble, as we have witnessed, is the main cause of this issue. And when you have wetlands and people think they are wasteland waiting to be sand-filled without any recourse to providing sponges, because wetlands are natural sponges. When nature takes its natural course of raining during this period of season, it will definitely, water necessarily have to find its level. So when we don't create that place for of water to find its level, and we'll go to build our posh houses. Then water will find its way into our posh houses, into our well-furnished sitting rooms and our garages with our posh cars, and then it will find its way there. So that is the situation that we are finding. And then on top of that, apart from the fact that we've sand-filled wetlands, then the drainages that are supposed to serve as where government has put drainages that are supposed to serve as conduits to channel this water where they are supposed to be are then blocked by who? By citizens. Indiscriminate dumping of our refugees, our refuse, and so on. So these are some of the factors that complicate what we have seen. But majorly is the sand filling of our wetlands, and this started years ago. Today is the years ago of tomorrow. So whatever we are doing today will have the repercussion for tomorrow. So the question is, have we learned from what we did wrong yesterday that we are paying the price today? And then we are continuing the same trajectory today, and we're going to pay the price subsequently tomorrow.
Right.
That's a tall one. My apologies, Joke. Yeah. That's a tall one. And I know it's something that, similar thing that Mr. Majakodume has said over time.
Yeah.
He's used your own analogy as well, you know, that we have been collecting loan from nature over the years, and we are just beginning to see the receipt. And it's like the nature is eventually giving us an invoice. But Mr. Majakodume, perhaps a good way to begin this conversation would be to even check whether, as a people, you know, Dr. Noja said something that we are all government. As a people, whether we even have an understanding of what is happening. Because if we have that understanding, as he also said, the citizen today may be a government official tomorrow. When we have adequate understanding, I'm not sure it'll be sensible for anyone who has a good understanding to go and thwart all those efforts when they get into positions where they should be understanding, they should be influencing something that can further or foster the image, the efforts of protecting our climate against the kind of destruction that we're beginning to experience now.
Yes, and the reality is, as Joseph Onoja so rightly said, nature is finally giving it back, as is the universal law. Every action has a reaction. What you sow, you shall surely reap. And in all honesty, nature has been very patient over the years. And in fairness to our people, it's only fairly recently in our history when we decided to jump on this development bandwagon without learning from the mistakes of the people who had spearheaded the Industrial Revolution in the first place, that we now are impacting so negatively against nature. In days gone by, is it the plastic? No, we were using moi leaf and calabash, throw it back into the bush within months, it's fertilizer. We were not destroying our forests at all. And we had very strong regard for the wetlands, partly because we didn't have too much ability to sand fill them, although, you know, we could get sand from the lagoons and throw it, but also partly because we understood that these things are so important. And as Dr. Onoja said, we do not appreciate how important these wetlands are. They are one of the most viable evacuation systems for the waters that will fall when you have the rains, and periodically you'll have fairly heavy rains. But the irony is that in this period now, the rains are getting far heavier. And we were told about this about, I think, 25 years ago. The first major alerts came. And then more recently, 10 years ago, the Secretary General of the United Nations was blowing the alarm, saying that mankind is waging war against nature, and this is suicidal because nature always fights back. Oh, she's giving it back now because of the global warming. The planet is heating beyond what it has been for eons upon eons upon eons. And this heat, it's very simple. It's everybody understands this. You add heat to water, and we're surrounded by water. You're going to get evaporation. The water will fall as rain falls. So definitely the citizens need to wake up to the responsibility.
Okay.
And those who are making the decisions need to make the right decisions in the right way to safeguard us.
Now, clearly, we cannot pause the kind of development that we are having now. I don't know, what you think of that. So in the process of developing and industrializing and all of that, what are the things that you think we can begin to factor in as we are developing? For instance, agriculture is evolving now. You don't even need to till the ground much now. You can just have, in fact, there are wall gardens now all over the world. There are, and people now even farm in buckets, everywhere. Even in your plastic bottles, people create all these farming techniques here and there. That is one way, for instance, that the urban world that doesn't have so much jungle are now going around, farming, so to speak, at least for the family. What other innovative ways do you think we can begin to stem the tide of this impact, particularly in the urban centers of our country?
Good question. Well, the first thing we have to realize is that it's difficult to call it development if in the process of doing these constructions and urbanizing, you're actually destroying nature's very life support systems. And where we have, just copied so wrongly, it's, why are we doing copy and paste? The Western world, who spearheaded all this thing, they are now seeing the errors that they made. And in some of the countries, like in the UK, for instance, in London, they ensured that a lot of the green space was intact. Do you know that over 25% of London is actually green space, little spots, big parks, and so on? But here we weren't able to hold ourselves accountable. If you're going to develop urban areas, you must have the green spaces. You must have trees lining your streets. It is essential. You cannot just tear down one of your most viable life support systems. The trees give out the oxygen. They suck in the pollution. They suck up the water. And then particularly in the Lagos area, there's no justification whatsoever in the Lagos zone, where we are so low-lying, where we have water surrounding us, the ocean is there, the lagoon is there. We cannot continue to destroy the mangroves. There's no justification for it. And whoever is responsible for allowing this to happen will definitely be held accountable by the people, by Almighty God, and by Mama Nature. Because, my brother, you want to slap your mama, she's going to slap you back.
And it's not going to be an easy slap. Dr. Onoja, I'd like you to respond to the same question. What innovative ways do you think we can begin to manage this situation in a way that nature will be at least sympathetic to our foolishness?
You see, as Mr. Majakodomi pointed out, we cannot fight against nature, and we are not averse to development, but we must we must build with nature in mind, since we know that it's an established fact that we cannot fight against nature. So what are the things that we can do? First of all, that is why there's the principle of ESIA. It used to be EIA, then we factored in the social component of it, and that is because we want to know sensitive areas, that is areas that must not be touched at all. If you want to develop, you must not touch that area, because I used to tell people that the environment is the #1 unit of production. So you cannot destroy your #1 unit of production and think that whatever so-called development that you've done is going to survive. So you must first of all protect your #1 unit of production. And once you protected that part, then you can talk about the other parts that the EIA should have provided for you to be able to say, okay, yeah, you can develop this part, but develop it in such a way that you won't fight against nature. Now, Makoko is an example for us. Makoko have been living on water for years now. How can we developers innovate that will be able to modernize Makoko so that we don't fight against nature, but we live in harmony with nature? since we know that we cannot win that war. So that's one example. Can we start thinking about, we have limited lands, can we start thinking about building our house on stilts, developers, such that when you find a wetland, instead of filling the wetland, you find innovative ways to be able to have the water around you, and yet you still have your houses and homes being built. Sometimes we overlook and look at just the physical impact of this flooding and all of this. We try to we forget the other component, the other, especially the mental health impact. Just recently, the Salata Institute of Climate Change of Harvard University, in conjunction with the University of Lagos, they've been doing a survey along the Gulf of Guinea, and there was a medical expert that brought out the mental health impact of flooding. So if we think that we are developing and physically, but not developing ourselves, our well-beings as humans, then is a zero-sum activity. So imagine the trauma that a family will face, thinking that they will be taking their children to school in the morning and wading through flood waters. What will happen to the car? What if the car breaks down in the middle of the water? So all of these things, we don't factor them in. So we must come together as a people to bring out solutions that will be able to help us live with nature instead of fighting against nature. And one of the ways I've said is that, can we develop and put especially in Lagos, can we do in such a way that we will be able to modernize what we have in Makoko, or have study tours of areas that are low-lying like the Netherlands. Venice is on water. What can we bring on board? All of these greedy developers, I'll call them really greedy, I'm going to call them out. Because even the Commissioner of Environment was struggling with some, that they even had to deploy armed men to try to stop people from doing the right thing, that they know that they blocked a canal that should channel water out. And because of very few people, a lot of the community were suffering because of water didn't have anywhere to go to. So we need to start calling people out for making the majority of people to suffer. So instead of just finding the short way out to just stand, fill the place and want to develop, why not invest in research and development to be able to see how we'll be able to live with nature instead of living against nature?
If you had to, I don't know, sit with maybe the governor or the commissioner that you've been referencing a bit now, what kind of conversations should he be having with these developers that you have spoken about, Dr. Onoja? You've cited the example of Venice, and it's a good, very, very good example. Venice has been living on top of what, building on top of what, how many decades? And the houses are standing. So if that, and Lagos definitely cannot do it. Lagos is a low water, what do you call it? You know, so it's just the way it is. What kind of conversations will you be having? I know that cost will be a factor. Yep. But what kind of conversation would you be having with those developers now? What does the state government have to do? Because already cost of living in Lagos is high, accommodation is high. What you are essentially saying is they have to spend a lot more money to build on these areas, and naturally it's going to cost a lot more. So what kind of concessions, what foundation should the state government be laying in that regard?
As you said, finance is going to be a major factor, but I want to tell them to look at Makoko and see what modernization we can bring about the model in Makoko. Yes, because you mentioned Venice, which I've mentioned, but also we have our own Venice here in Lagos. What can we learn from Makoko? Because Makoko has been standing for some years now, even though not in the best shape it could be, but it can be modernized. So the government can take that model and sell it to the developers. Eventually, they're the ones who want to make the money. So the government will create the enabling environment and discuss with the developers. If you must go ahead with developing, then we must make it happen. In fact, the Commissioner of Urban Development and Infrastructure was in a meeting I was talking about the fact that what if we even decentralize the development that is happening in Lagos and provide some other infrastructure away from Lagos so that the pressure will be reduced around Lagos, so that the concentration in Lagos will be reduced, so that because there's the statistics that say 1,500 people come into Lagos, not to live, but to stay in the limited land that we have, where 30% of it is water. So we must be thinking of how to decentralize this development and take it to to hinterland, so that Lagos will, at least the pressure will reduce as well. So these are some of the thinking that will definitely have to come on board, because we have limited land, and the limited land is still being choked continuously. So there's a need for us to sit and innovate in that direction.
Mr. Majakulmi, what are your thoughts on that?
No, Onoja is absolutely right. We need to decentralize, and it's easy to do that when you have speedy rail transport systems. So you can put people on outskirts, and the rail is there. But the major issue is that we have to ensure that we break this yoke that we have. As human beings generally, this is not just confined to Lagos, Nigeria, Africa. This is a global issue that humanity has to break certain yokes that we have had for centuries upon centuries, where we've been driven by greed, by selfishness, by wickedness, me, myself, and you're prioritizing profit over people, over the planet, which is the life support system. A change has to come. Because the reality is that the consequences are now coming down, and they're coming down far more rapidly. As I mentioned earlier, this is a law of the universe. It is there in every scripture. Is it retributive?
Just as you have said, my apologies for butting in, Mr. Majakulmi. Just as you have said, I mean, you said before, we haven't seen anything yet, and you have said it here again as well. But the question is, now, Dr. Onoja seems to be suggesting that people should be living on water. Pretty much saying have a ocean view where there is no ocean. And as exciting as that sounds, what are your thoughts really? Because it's an idea that is alien to a good number of people, particularly the elites. He cited Makoko. Is it really, in your opinion, a choice?
We have no other choice. If we want to continue developing within Lagos, we cannot justify the sand filling that we're doing of the wetlands. Far too much of it has been done, and has been done for decades and decades. What of Ikoyi Park? Ikoyi Park was a great drainage area for the whole of the Lekki axis, which never used to experience floods. And now they had the audacity to just sand fill, develop the whole place and call it Park View Estates when there's no park to view. This type of audacity has to change. It is not acceptable, because we're impacting not just our lives, but the lives of our children. And therein lies my hope, that at least we have enough love for our young ones, for the innocent children, not to destroy their future, which is exactly what we're doing. So yes, there's some beautiful houses. Venice has a lovely, lovely terrain. And the new developments now putting houses on stilts, it is acceptable. And if you don't like it, then don't stay in Lagos. You don't have the justification. Just because you've been able to accumulate, some piles of wealth, God knows where that wealth came from, to now use that to sort of spike everybody and say, oh no, government, I'm stronger than you. Nonsense. Nonsense. And the Commissioner for Environment, we're 100% behind him. He has to ensure that all these places, how can you be blocking a drain because of your big building? No. This is absolutely, totally unacceptable, and definitely we will resist it in every way. And as Onoja said, physically it is dangerous. Psychologically it is dangerous. Spiritually it is also very dangerous for you, because the consequences will be there. After all, water, get enemy.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you for agreeing with me.
That's a song that's on. You and I seem to share that song this morning, Mr. Majakulmi. But then, if let me stay with you. There's the issue of sand filling, and then there's the issue of taking that same land that they used to fill to do construction in other places, the dredging of sand by developers as well. As demand for housing is so high now that they just go to where the sand are by the ocean, and they just keep carting away the sand. What dangers lie in there as well, Mr. Majakulmi?
There's a lot of risk. Offshore, that is ocean dredged sand, if it is taken from enough of a distance from the shore, then there's probably not that much risk. It depends, though. The closer you come to the shore, you could be impacting the stability of the shoreline, but that's just the ocean sand. The one that is a lot more risky is the amount of sand that we've been taking from the lagoon. This is destabilizing the solidity of the beds of the lagoon. And to be honest, even though sharp sand is very useful for, the modern cement bricks, there are ways of making bricks without using so much sharp sand and so much cement. There are solid bricks that are made from using far more friendly type of materials like the clay, the clay bricks and so on. Yes, they are there. And we need to really start rethinking, because while we're getting the short benefits, quickly, we've done the building, we've got this wonderful mansion here, there, and everywhere. The long term, even those big mansions, once you destabilize the soils, the mansions themselves will crumble. Oh yes, they will fall. So we need to really have a rethink. This is like, for us to really start to adjust ourselves and have a transformational renewal of our minds and adopt the major scriptural injunction, which is, love your neighbor, peace be unto you. And how are you going to have peace and love to your neighbor if you're destroying his very life support system because of your unbridled greed and pride? The changes must come.
Right.
And nature is insisting to do come.
And peace be unto you too, Mr. Majekotumi. We would like to thank you for the pleasure of, discussing this matter. That's the Desmond Majekotumi, chairman of Lufasi Park, an environmental advocate. Also, Dr. Joseph Onoja, Director General of the Nigeria Conservation Foundation. Thank you also for the time you took to, talk about this flooding crisis and how we can prevent future occurrences.
So when we return, if flood has already taken over the land, there is nothing to inherit. But let's even talk about the inheritance. Let's assume that the land is still there when we return.